Alright guys, again, just like I said in the last video, we had such a good conversation with Hunter and Stephanie. We didn't have time to get to the grappling event that happened over the weekend, the Who's Number One, which was supposed to be Gordon Ryan versus Felipe 4, though they called it 2, but, you know, and that was a real bummer. Gordon ended up pulling out. Nicky Rod steps up and takes the fight. Thanks Nicky Rod for taking that fight. You know, we did just see that match. It seemed like a lot of people in the crowd didn't really agree with the decision. Maybe they just, you know, they're not getting the Who's Number One rules or whatever it might be. Or it was just they remember the heel hook attempt at the end that Nicky Rod had. So aside from having positional control, he didn't really do too much aside from that outside heel hook attempt at the end, which was deep for sure, but I don't think it can go against the few attacks that Felipe had. So if all you're remembering is that last attack, then yeah, you're going to boo at the end and you're going to think it's a robbery. But if you remember the entire 30-minute match, Felipe was going in for the legs. He went in, I think, for a guillotine, and he went in for a couple other things here and there. So he had more attacks. And in this rule set, it's about the attacks too. The positional dominance, it comes into account, but not as much as those attacks do. So I do think they got it right, and Felipe did win. Whether you're watching this or you watch that and you just think they give it to Felipe to hype up the Gordon match, the Gordon match is always going to be there because Gordon's always going to want it. Just because he wants to get those wins back, and he should want to get those wins back. The co-main event on that one was Giancarlo Bordoni versus Pedro Marinho. And here's my problem with this whole card. Pedro Marinho is the Who's Number One champ. He holds the belt, and you make him walk out first against Giancarlo. Like, I don't understand like what the reason is behind that. The only thing I can think of is it's just because it's a Gordon's friend type of thing. There's no reason that the champion should walk out first. And I was really just pumped off of that Pedro won. Just because of that, you know, I'm a Giancarlo fan as much as I'm a Pedro Marinho fan. But yeah, just to do Pedro like that, I was kind of glad to see him come back and get the win. The match itself was kind of like the Craig Jones fight. Pedro ends up getting some good takedowns. Doesn't obviously do too much with it. Maybe tries to pass on the outside here or there. He won on the feet, and if everything's neutral on the ground, then you got to give it to the guy who won on the feet. There was no major attempts by any of them. So yeah, I mean, I think they got that one right too, and good for Pedro. And like I said, shame on you for Flow Grappling and Flow Sports for making Pedro walk out like that first. Oliver Taza versus Jonathan Gracie. That match kind of went how I thought it would go. Jonathan Gracie is obviously super strong, really good positional. And he just didn't let Oliver get into the legs and start his game. So he just kind of dominated on top the entire time. Same thing with the JT Torres versus Majid Hayes. I'm a huge Gorilla Hands fan. He's been around for a long time. I don't want to say like there's levels to this game because Majid's been in for a long time. But man, JT, obviously a two-time ADCC champ. I'm glad to see he's competing more because between the last two ADCCs, I don't think he competed at all. He just came back for ADCC last year, and obviously ended up not going so well for him. But at the same time, it just ended up with kind of positional dominance, and he ended up getting the win over Majid. Rocha versus Bruce, obviously Wagner's daughter, but yeah, Jasmine Rocha ends up coming through. It looked good for Bruce early as the match wore on, and it got pretty late and that she finished the match and ends up, I don't know if it was an Ezekiel or a smother or just a combination of the two, but obviously the replay looked really uncomfortable. Renee Souza versus I don't know the guy's last name, Kirchuk. That was a great fight. It was kind of dubbed it to be the false reap guy versus the buggy choke. He didn't let Renee Souza get anywhere near the buggy choke. It was looking real good, but a scramble happens late in the round or late into the match, and Renee ends up leg locking the leg lock guy with a nice little knee bar, and it happened real quick. So yeah, great card. Flow Sports, what are you doing? You can't make your champion walk out first. You're really like demoting and demoralizing your champion, and I can't imagine that would ever happen if it was Gordon Ryan holding the belt or one of the new wave guys. They'd treat him like the champ. So check out the podcast, drops tomorrow with Hunter and Stephanie. Check out the fight breakdown and the Jake Paul breakdown. And we'll drop a Cyril Gahn versus John Jones breakdown later in the week. Let me know what you guys think, and thanks for watching.